Okay, Bismillah. Salatu wassalam ala Rasulil Kareem amma ba'd. Okay, so let's quickly recap. We said that, we already stated that Islam is not religion. When I say that, I don't mean it's wrong to say Islam is religion. Okay, I'm not saying you're not allowed to say it's totally. What I think is that when we understand Islam as a religion, there's a conceptual problem for us. And that's why if you understand Islam as a religion, that's where the problem arises. Instead of understanding Islam to be, truth and meaning and based on truth and meaning, right? So don't take this the wrong way, because in certain cases, you have to use Islam as a religion. For instance, in a, for political expediency, if we start saying that Islam is not a religion, then what happens to religious freedom in America? It becomes a problem, right? So again, this is just for our conceptual understanding of Islam, right? Not that I'm now going to be like a word Nazi and say, okay, you can never use it in this case. It's just for our conceptual understanding. I just want to clarify that, okay? And again, that's why I made the distinction between normative and descriptive, because I say that if you understood religion normatively in the pre-modern era, right, before the wars of religion, you would actually come to the point where say, yeah, Islam is religion, Christianity is the entire scope of what a person understands as reality. Because in pre-modern Europe, one of certain authors said, you basically leave Christianity. There was no option. You don't leave Christianity because that's the only thing you do, right? In that case, putting Christianity to the box of religion as, it has entities in the Enlightenment and so on and so forth. There's a whole history behind it, which I'm not going to obviously get into right now. Okay, so we said that a better understanding of the Deen, by extension Islam, therefore, is that it's a worldview. A worldview is the lens by which we look at reality. And so we said, what are the components of a worldview? Actually, I've got this one. This one's ordered. Yeah, I'm good. Okay, so I went through them very quickly, but I wanted to spend a little bit of time kind of go through individually with a little more detail. Okay, so we said that ontology asks the question about what exists. Okay, do I exist? Does the tree exist? Does the carpet exist? Whatever, questions about existence. Part of those questions, one of those questions is, does God exist? Okay. If you answer yes, then you move up to a theology, which is right there. The clicker, the pointer's not working, but theology is way there on top. Okay. After you look at ontology, you move to epistemology. How do I know? What are the sources of knowledge? What do I consider knowledge? Right? So epistemology is study of knowledge. How I know what I know. How one thing has certain epistemic ways is another thing. So tomorrow, when we get into the philosophy of science, one of the cases that I want to report is that science has a certain epistemic value. Source of knowledge, it has a certain value. The Quran has a certain epistemic value. And when you compare the two, you will find that the Quran's epistemic value is way higher than science itself. And we're going to get that tomorrow. And that's why the narrative of the Quran as scientific miracles becomes very problematic when we understand philosophy of science. But we're going to do that tomorrow. My point now is that we're talking here about epistemology. How do we know what we know? What are sources of knowledge? Is our sources of knowledge just the natural world around us? Or is there revelation? And if there is revelation, how do you justify that knowledge? And so on. So that's epistemology. After that, you move on to anthropology. Here, I'm not talking about the university, like you go to university and study anthropology. That's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about linguistically, anthropology is the study of the human being, man, right? At the university, it's more like societies and culture. Okay. Here, I'm talking about what is the constitution of the human being? Are we just material matter? That many atheists would believe that it's just all material, or do we have a soul? And if we have a soul or only material matter, how do we now deal with issues like consciousness, which is a serious issue for a lot of atheists, right? Because how do we handle consciousness? We'll get into that tomorrow as well, right? Because consciousness Where do you find everything neurology, and you are an expert, right, in the neurological networks of the brain, fair enough. Where do you get consciousness? How do you get intentionality? You intend something, where does that arise from? If your only recourse is the material matter, where does intentionality come from? Right? How do you make choices? So those are really difficult problems that someone that holds a worldview, again, ontologically that God doesn't exist, you're gonna have a very hard time answering. Okay. So epistemology is about what is the source of knowledge, or anthropology, excuse me, is what is the composition of the human being. All right. Islamically, we understand the composition is both body and soul, and they have a dynamic interplay between both of them. And this becomes really important when we start dealing with, we're not doing this course, but we have a course coming up that's going to be dealing with that. When we deal with issues about transgenderism, like on these two separate realms, domains, the body and the eternal soul, and if they are, is there no interplay between them? Again, those are questions that are not going to be part of this course, but they become important in terms of, okay, what do we believe about the human being? How do we know, or what do we believe about the human being? Are we just body, or are we body and soul as well? Okay, after that, we look at teleology. Teleos, for the purpose. Okay, and usually in many spheres of kind of study, if you take an approach where you jettison the idea of God altogether, you have to completely let go of the idea of any sort of teleos or purpose or anything, whether we're talking about the human being, whether we're talking about the universe, whether we're talking about history. It was very interesting when I was at UT Austin. One of the things that I was in one of the graduate courses, and I remember the professor had mentioned that we were studying Marxism. Don't ask me why. But anyway, so we're studying Marxism, and the professor made a statement. I thought it was very strange. He said, "We don't believe history has a teleology." Okay. In other words, history just moves, which is part of some random process that moves forward. And I started thinking about this, and wow, that's really interesting. Because, well, let me ask you this: in Islam, do we believe history has a teleology? No? Okay, let me go ahead. In Islam, we don't believe history has a teleology. So I'll answer that for you, right? So most definitely believe that. Because we understand there's a beginning and there's an end. We have a whole historical account, the past and the future, that the Quran mentions. So obviously, we have a firm understanding and a true of history has teleology. Forget like human beings and things like that. So you have to let go and sideline and jettison the entire concept of teleology. If you cannot take recourse, there being the demonic. Okay, but that's what we talk about when we talk about teleology. Now, one thing that I forgot to mention, what you'll notice is that the lines and the categories get the colors start getting fading as you move down. The reason we did that is to give you a concept to say these are kind of the most important aspects of a person's worldview. And as you get lower and lower, one becomes dependent on the other. Okay, so ontology is way at the top. Epistemology, they're probably both neck to neck. But right after that is anthropology. Less than that is teleology. Then we get to morality and ethics. So while the discussions are happening all the time about morality and ethics, no one asks the question that should be asked preceding that. And you start getting into a lot of arguments, right? A lot of problems that arise because we don't talk about the other components of the worldview that come before morality and ethics. And tomorrow, I think we have a discussion on objective morality. Okay, what's the difference between subjective morality and objective morality? And we'll get into a long discussion about how, if a person believes in objective morality, otherwise they have to be subjective, they never see anything anywhere. They never see it okay wrong or turn it around. Related to morality and ethics. Okay, once you have morality and ethics, question about what is right and wrong, then you formulate law and politics. You argue to the T down to like everything. And yet people are missing so many things that come before arguments about politics. Okay. Now the last one I have up there, you might not be able to see it, is aesthetics. Our conceptualization of beauty is connected with our worldview. Let me give an example. I'm going to say a word, and I would like, and I want you to tell me what's the first thing that comes to your mind. And I'm going to pick on something and say all at once. Okay? So you guys ready to hear the word? Sisters included. So, just, I'm going to pick on one of you. Here we go. Here's the word. I want you to, the first thing that comes to your mind. The word is art. Okay, go. What's the first thing that comes to your mind? Painting. Painting. What's the first thing that comes to your mind? Quick. First thing. Come on. Mona Lisa. Okay, first thing that comes to your mind. Yes, you. Science? Okay, all right. Well, first thing comes to your mind. Right there. You, yeah. You. First thing. Art. Paintings? Okay. Frames? Okay. Okay, creativity. What's first thing comes to your mind? Creativity. Okay, put your hand. What's on your mind? What's first thing comes to your mind? Right. Painting. Everyone just stealing everyone else's answers. Okay. Isn't it interesting that no one mentions anything related to auditory sensation? It's all visual. Creativity. Okay, so why? We are inclination, natural, we go straight to the visual arts. Well, that has a background, right? So let's expound upon this, investigate this background. When you think about why we think about visual arts, the first thing that comes to our mind, you see that it has a backdrop, not in our sort of objective understanding of reality, but in the particular epoch of time and place we find ourselves. Why? Because what's highlighted in the West that we live in the world now, is a focus on the visual. And why is it highlighted? Because it's a throwback to Christian Europe. When Christian Europe wants now describe or have people relate to the divine, well, when you go to the Bible, the word becomes what? Flesh. And if the word becomes flesh, now, in order to connect with the divine, you can make things like paintings. You can set up idols. Here I'm talking about, like statues and things like that. Jesus around me. You can look at, these beautiful churches that have that same glass image of in their perception or their conceptualization of the divine. God is primarily visual. If you were to go to the pre-modern Muslim world, what is the conception of the divine? What is the word? How is the word understood? They have auditory sensation, the Quran, right? The beauty of the Quran, how it affects you. And so if you go to the pre-modern Islamic world, what do you have that's considered arts? You have calligraphy, you have recitation, you have sound, you have a focus on the auditory sensation, right? And even architecture that's built, it's built to now how do we have, based on our auditory sensation that we have, how do we now build our architecture into that, right? And it's very different. So the idea of a man, you're gonna make me have this announcement? Did you do that? You're gonna be in trouble. Go ahead. Okay. Okay.
75 people registered on the Smart Jama'at, but it looks like we have 125 people that showed up.
Okay. So aesthetics, coming back to our point now, that your worldview is going to also, your aesthetics and your perception of beauty is also there's an interplay between your worldview and your perception of beauty itself, right? Okay. All right. So now these are the main components of a worldview. And because of time, we're gonna kind of just look at a comparison of one with the other. So what we'll do is, so you can compare, let's say, the Islamic worldview with the modern worldview, right? And what we'll do is we'll compare ontology. Okay. When we look at the Islamic worldview, when we ask about what exists, okay, does God exist? Under the Islamic worldview, the answer is a resounding, clear, unequivocal yes, God exists. Okay. Under the modern worldview, maybe not important. Doesn't matter. Okay. Under the modern worldview, does the unseen realm exist? right? Alam al-ghayb, things like jinn, angels, barzakh, all these things. Again, in the Islamic worldview, there is a resounding yes, it exists. Under the modern worldview, it's categorically denied. I'm not going to deny that transcends or is outside of the physical universe. Nothing. Okay. The seen realm, al-shahada, is it also under the modern worldview? Yeah, it's part of the natural worldview. It's what we call the empirical world. That's why empiricism, not empiricism, but empirical analysis status in the modern world, right? That's why science is raised to the degree it is, right? Because for that, it's very clear. The empirical world, yes, we can. All right. The resurrection and judgment, right? The ma'ad, moral accounting, heaven, hell. Is that affirmed in the modern world? Well, no, right? I've got up there, no identified with eschaton. And eschaton is a fancy way of saying that they don't believe in any sort of end, no afterlife, anything like that. Okay. Finally, cosmos, human life fused with purpose and meaning. Under the Islamic worldview, yes, of course, it's fused with purpose. We have a purpose, we have a meaning, we have a deep meaning, right? That's intricately tied with the divine. Under a modern worldview, there is no objective meaning. Teleology is denied. Now, what I want us to appreciate, not just as a comparison, just for the sake of comparing, how rich and how you can say, how pregnant, how rich, how overwhelming the Islamic worldview is in terms of content, and how emaciated and content-less modern worldview is. Just that comparison to kind of bring something up with inside of you, right? Say, well, else. We're actually rich with content. Okay? Now that's ontology. I'm going to skip epistemology. We'll cover that later, inshallah, in ontology. Let me just mention something. We'll take a quick, I'll do a shameless plug for a second here. So the organization that I work for is the Sapiens Institute. The website's up there. One service that we offer, I'm going to pitch now, is called Lighthouse Mentoring. Okay? This service, a person can log on and they can book a free 1-hour session. And the primary target audience for these sessions are people that have doubts about Islam, right? You're doubting something about some aspect of Islam. Ex-Muslims, people that have left Islam, non-Muslims, right? That want to know about Islam, or people that would like to know how to deal with the first categories. So you have a relative, they left Islam, how do I deal with that? You have a friend, he's got doubts. I have a friend, he's not Muslim or whatever. How do I deal with that? Those are the 4 categories. So the website for that is lighthousementoring.org. You can take a picture of that. And so, you can, what I would recommend is if you know people like that, yourself have questions, it's a private session, it's free, it's a one-on-one session, okay, for an hour. You can always book a session later if you like. So I would say take advantage of that. It will definitely help your imam, right? And many imams across the world, to be honest, help them with their workload. Okay. The next thing I wanted to mention, and I know there's people online, this entire course, the Divine Reality, we actually, with all of our courses, what we do is we go into the studio and we record the professions first before taking them to communities. That way, if you miss out on anything, you have to run out. The whole course is online. Again, the course is free. You just go to learn.sapiensinstitute.org. You can take the course for free. It's divided into modules, you take quizzes, and so on and so forth. So this very course is there. All of our other courses are there. You find a course on doubts, you find a course on course on Christianity, courses on culture, right? Logic, but of course we have them, and they're all free. That being the case, if you benefit from some of that stuff, consider donating. That'll be my shameless pitch, and we'll move on, inshallah. So if you want to take a picture of that, there's a QR code, and we're going to use that too. Move quickly, so we'll move on from there. Okay. And by the way, this course, it has a book, you can download it, it's free online, PDF. Okay. If you want to order it, you have to go to Amazon. But we don't profit from the book. Right? So any sort of cost you pay on Amazon is just to pay Amazon to get it to you or whatever. What I will say is if you buy from Amazon, give it a 5-star rating because that raises it up in the category. And in the UK, Amazon, it was actually for a while, it was #1 in the category of atheism and philosophy. And for the US, it wasn't. So which is good because now it's like the first book they see is this one. The exams. Anyway, that's my shameless pitch. Let's move on to rationality. Everyone ready? How many good are okay so far? Am I going too fast? Okay. Okay. Everyone's good, right? Everyone's understood worldviews, religion, all that stuff. Components of the worldview. All right. Now we're going to get a bit heavy. All right. We're going to talk about rationality. Now, someone may say, look, man, you have all this discussion about worldviews. Okay. But your worldview is basically fairy tales, man. Right? So my worldview is based on rationality. Okay, that's kind of a claim that people make. Oh, you just believe, blind faith, whatever it might be. But what we want to do is now we want to dissect rationality itself, the very project. Typically, when people talk about rationality, they divide rationality into two categories. You have something that's rational and something that's irrational. So a very simple statement that rational is I am God. Simple, straightforward, no problem. But what if I came and I said, you know what? I am married bachelor. Rational or irrational? Irrational. What if I was obstinate? I was stubborn. I said, look, I don't care about what you say about rationality or irrationality. I am married bachelor. Prove to me that I'm not. Let's go. Come on now, prove it. I am a married bachelor. Prove to me I can.
It depends.
It depends.
Your wife is on vacation.
If your wife is on vacation, well, what though? Your wife here. Okay, yeah, back there. The direct contradiction, I'm okay with contradictions. Okay, but I'm married after. I'm married after. There's no like past, present, future. Right now, I'm married after. The words that not want to be, but I'm saying I'm not for the side. I'm married after. Yeah, right there. No, I'm married to my wife and husband. Okay, yeah.
You have a right.
You have a right to your view. Very American of you. Very American of you. Yeah, you do you, man. Okay. All right, so here's the thing. If I'm asking you to prove this, there's a problem. I say, look, I'm in contradiction. The problem is when you say you're a married bachelor, you're talking about two things that, you know, going to get technical terms. They're mutually exclusive. Now, Brian loves that. Usually that one comes up. That's the first thing. Oh, son, we had got that problem solved. Anyway, you see a bachelor. Okay. Now, if I was obstinate, to me, it's not logical. But then what if I said, okay, principle and problem? Prove right, I'm saying I'm okay with contradictions. I agree with the dictionary definition. And I'm okay with contradictions. And you know, that doesn't mean logic. On the things. Okay, prove Yeah, here maybe I'm gonna bring my slides back, inshallah. Right there. Okay, perfect. Okay. So we're good with the rationale?
You see it all
Yeah.
based on empirical evidence because you see it.
Yes, when you see it, then you can affirm. But what's the assumption that comes before that? That you will. But you don't absolutely know that until you actually draw, right?
And when you know that it's based on empirical.
Right, but empirical evidence, is we're gonna get into a lot of details about this tomorrow, is empirical evidence never gets you to absolute certainty.
Yes, of course not.
Of course, okay, but the assumption is nature is uniform, and therefore we will then do our experiments and so on, because we assume that nature is uniform. Okay, now that's fine, in every area, every sphere, every domain, you'll find that you have to have axioms, first principles, you have to agree with sporadic. There's no way to escape it. Okay, I'm gonna move on. Let's go back to worldviews for a second. Worldviews are based upon certain axioms, certain basic beliefs. And so one can think of a worldview as comprising of a number of basic beliefs, which are philosophically equivalent to the axioms of a worldview, considered as a logical or consistent theory. These basic beliefs, why they're proven in the logical sense within the worldview, precisely because they are axioms. Okay, they're self-evidently true. You understand them directly as being true. Logical principles, you directly understand them, not proving the logical. Okay? And they are typically argued from rather than argued for. In other words, you start with an axiom and then you argue forward. Right? So very after, you have to assume that we all agree that things cannot be mutually exclusive. Okay? If you disagree, then the problem is that we don't agree on the axiom. It's problematic, right? Okay. Let's get into the fifth a little more detail. Okay. I told you this section is going to be a bit intense. Now, in the Islamic framework, what we find is that the term fitra itself, even if you were to take it to understand it in Arabic, it's a difficult concept to really grasp. Right? The added difficulties when you bring it into the English language. So what I have up there in terms of the fitra is a working definition. Okay, people define it in ways because how you understand it. So the definition I have up there, the original normative disposition, people may define other ones, right? The primordial normative disposition, or something like that. Okay, but we're just going to go with this. I'm going to look at each one of these terms to kind of understand a little bit more about the fitra, inshallah. And I have actually 15 minutes, so don't go anywhere. Okay, the first term, originally. So the term fitra, it comes from the triliteral stem fatara. Okay, and this term, it has a few meanings. So one, it means to cleft asunder, and it means origination. And so hence in this particular ayah, afillahi shak fatir as-samawati wal ard. Can't there be any doubt about God? It says creator, but what it should say is originator, the one who creates ex nihilo. In other words, without any sort of pre-existing material, creates out of nothing. Okay, that's how Fahad is a bit different than Khalid. All right, if we have kind of a general breaking down, although Khalid can be used conversely. But anyhow, so Fatir as-samawati wal ard. Fatir also refers to the baby tooth or the baby tooth of a certain cow. So when that tooth comes out, the gum is cleft asunder, it's split asunder, and it's a baby tooth, it's a baby tooth, so it originates. So that's also called Fatir al-Nabi. It's called the original baby tooth of a type of cow. Okay? This is just linguistically. So the point here is just that it's referring to something that's original. That's the starting point. Okay? And hence we say the starting point for rational argument or rational principle that originates. Okay. The term itself is what we call in Arabic grammar, it's an ismul hayy, which it's a term that refers to the way you do something or the way something is done or the way you use. So other terms that are on the same form or in the same category, things like that, the direction you turn, the way you turn. Okay. You have khilqa, the way something is created. Jinsa, the way you sit. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, no child is born, but is born upon the fitra, right? مَا مِن مَوْلُودٍ إِلَّا يُولَدُ عَلَى الْفِطْرَةِ. No child is born except that he's born upon the fitra. His parents make him a Jew, a Christian, or a Magian. How many people have heard this hadith before? Many. In this particular narration in Sahih Muslim, there's an addition, which is, as an animal delivers a child who lives intact, do you detect any flaw? And that's the section I want to highlight just for a second. Because when we talk about original, now we talk about normative. Why do we say that Qibla is normative? Normative, like we spoke about earlier, is how something should be, how it's appropriate to be, how it's normal to make it very easy, right? How you normally find something, right? That's why if you consider, let's say, that there are two, there's a male and a female. What you can be accused of is being cis normative. You ever heard this term? Well, college, you know this term well, I mean cis normative. You ever heard that term? Oh, wow. Okay, guys need to get out of the more. Right? Okay. Cis normative is a derogatory term. Say you believe that there's only two genders. There, yes. Right? Like whatever. So you'd be accused of being cis normative, meaning you consider two genders as normal, how things should be. Similarly, you consider yourself heteronormative, that a homo interaction is one of like male and female and female, and that's not normal. That is anti-normative. So if you're heteronormative in the view of the culture, that's very negative. You're heteronormative, you're such a big or whatever. That's where this term comes in. So why did the Prophet ﷺ say, as an animal delivers a child who lives intact, do you detect it fall? What was the importance of that statement? Some words that have no reason, right? What do you think the significance is?
The way that the animal delivers the child becomes that is the normal.
That is the normal way to see child. You recognize it already, right? And you would recognize that it was a living thing. So you have an intuitive, direct understanding of what is normal. That is not a rational problem. You do not take a syllogism and prove that this is normal. You naturally understand. Makes sense? That is a part of the. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ states this additional element to the hadith. Okay, everyone good so far? We're talking about normativity here. Now, continuing on, and this is what I thought was a good way to kind of elucidate the point. In Surah Al-Mulk, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَفَمَنْ يَمْشِي مُكِبًّا عَلَى وَجْهِهِ أَهْدَىٰ مَنْ يَمْشِي سَوِيًّا عَلَى صِرَاطٍ مُسْتَقِيمٍ. Is the one who walks upside down in his face better guided, or one who walks upright on a straight path? Well, now, why is, like, how is this related to what I was talking about? If you walked outside, right, and people were just walking upside down, right, on their hands, on their faces, would you just walk by and be like, it's normal, just keep walking? Or would you be like, wait a minute, what is going on? Something is wrong, right? Naturally, you say, oh, wait, something's going on, because we walk. That is the normative way of being walks. What's anti-normative is people walking upside down, right? So the point is that is a recognition that you have as part of your income, part of your original normative disposition. We'll get to disposition in a second. Okay. In fact, there's at the end of that hadith, Abu Hurairah narrates the hadith, recites this ayah where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَأَقِمْ وَجْهَكَ لِلدِّينِ حَنِيفًا فِطْرَةَ اللَّهِ الَّتِي فَطَرَ النَّاسَ عَلَيْهَا. Okay, let me stop here for a second. The ayah continues and says, لَا تَبْدِيلَ لِخَلْقِ اللَّهِ, that there's no, the translation here is there's no change should there be in the creation of Allah. Can the fitrah be changed? Yes? Who said yes? You did. So what's the evidence? Okay. Wait, let's take the human fitra. A human fitra we change. Who said no? Okay, why do you say no? What's the evidence?
Like when you were born upon it, unless somebody outside of the code of Islam may say that normative can be changed to be desensitized.
Okay, so within the Islamic paradigm, can it be changed? That's all I'm asking. So you're saying, okay, the evidence is that just
If it's normal,
okay,
changing normativity means that you're changing the normal.
okay. Let me be a little more specific. What is the evidence from our sources of knowledge, like the Quran and the Sunnah, that the fitra can or cannot be changed? That's our so can the fitra be changed?
See, like we're saying that can we move what's normative. This books with recorded
Oh, you're way overthinking this, man. You're way overthinking this. You got the previous scriptures. I'm just saying we're all born upon the fitra. Okay, hopefully that's clear by now. Can that change? And if it can't or it can, what is the evidence for that? Simple question. Thank you. It's right there, right? La tabdila li khalqillah. There's no changing in the grace of Allah. So someone who is like, yeah. Okay, this is what's beautiful about evidence, is that, man, did I miss out on? Yes, I did. Well, then look at that. Okay, so there's actually another ayah that on there. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about shaitan. And he talks about shaitan, and he talks about shaitan says, I will cause them to change, I will order them to change. It was translated as change the creation of Allah. The issue arises is the term here that's used is tabdeel. And the term there that's used goes to change. Now, what's the difference? When we talk about the fitrah, there's no tabdeel. What that means is you cannot take the fitrah and completely replace it with something else. You cannot exchange it with something else. But the fitrah itself, it can be an impact on it. Now we know that because the Prophet said this is parents that made me, but you a Christian or amazing. So if I take this bottle as an example, he said this is the fitrah, you cannot exchange this for something else and say, okay, now I'll change from fitrah. But you can actually change the actual bottle. You take off the label, take off the cap, or whatever it is. Does everyone understand the difference? Okay, it's important because no one can get rid of their fitrah and exchange it with something completely different. But the fitrah can be impacted. Okay, how is it impacted? We have a whole course on that related to the fitrah. Okay, which I'm going to save for that course because we get a lot of detail related to fitrah. This course is not about that. I'll end with the last particular term here, that is disposition. So we said the fitrah is the original normative disposition. It is an inclination or disposition that the human being has. There's two primary views in our tradition. Okay, these two views are the following. Number one, that the fitrah contains primary inborn knowledge of, number one, God's existence, that he deserves to be worshipped, and the basic morals. The second opinion says that the fitrah does not contain knowledge, rather it directs one towards the truth. There's a potency, right? There's a disposition or a potency toward the recognition of God prime for worshiping. Now you might be like, wait a minute, you're just touching a straw. What's the difference? Who cares, right? Only because I want to have kind of academic clarity. I don't want us to, point me whichever opinion you take, you'll be fine, okay? But the reason why this difference comes up is because we have the question, is what we're born with, is that actual knowledge, or is that just an inclination, is that a potency? And this is where the different comes in. The different evidence that, when we discuss this, and I'm not going to get into that. But it's just important for yourself just to know that that difference kind of exists in terms of disposition. Long story short, the fitrah is the original normative disposition. It is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created every single human being upon. It is how we understand things with the supra-rational, logical principles, our perception of beauty, our smells and things like that. And it is normative in how we understand things to be normal, right? And we don't necessarily need a justification for it because they're like an axiom or first principle. Okay, so it's the normative, and it's a disposition. It is how you dispose, this is how you incline towards that naturally. That's why when, sometimes you can be giving da'wah to someone, non-Muslim, you can step onto them and it's naturally like, it's almost like, okay, I've already recognized this, okay? I'll just add one thing here as an interesting point. When we talk about ayat, it's in the slides, or when we look at the term ayat, what does the term ayat mean? A sign, thank you very much. Okay, let's dig into this a little bit more. When we look at the term ayat, it comes from the tribal root alif, ya, ya. Okay. You find that this is used in other words as well. To distinguish something from something else, you would say, which of these deeds is the best? So you have a bunch of deeds, which one can I distinguish, which one comes about, which is, I'm going to distinguish that one from the rest of them. Okay? When we look at an ayah, it has two primary characteristics. Number one, that there is no information transfer. And number two, the effect is immediate. So let me give an example. Imagine now, well, you're not going to imagine this, but so I graduated my undergrad from Michigan State University, right? So I'm actually not really from this area per se. I just went to college here and I left, okay? Now, that graduation happened in the Stone Age. It's really old, but anyways, happened a long time ago. Now, let's say I moved to Houston, I'm in my attic, I find this box, and I open this box, and look at myself, and I pull out, and I find in there the robe and the cap that I wore on graduation day. And immediately I'm like, man, I immediately remember myself sitting there waiting for my name to be announced and being really annoyed that it starts with the T and I have to wait for 250 people before me. So that annoyance comes back to me immediately. I remember going up on stage. I remember looking at my parents' faces like, wow, he actually made it. Right? So all that, did I learn something? Did I act as syllogism at that point? No, right? The effect of an eye, like happens in eye, it touches deeply inside of you. Number one, immediately, and number two, there's no information transfer. Okay? Do you think eye affects the rational or the super rational? Primarily, the super rational. In fact, it is in the wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He takes that which is higher than rational and uses ayat to attract that, because that is what every human being has, the fiqh. And that's very profound. That's why we go to the Quran, we don't find discursive reasoning. You don't find logical syllogisms like how we understand philosophical workings. Like we have a deductive argument, A, B, therefore C, two premises and a conclusion. That's not how it's structured. Even the arguments that are presented, they're presented, you can deduce from there a deductive argument. Like, for instance, one of the sections we talk about the Quran's rational argument. And the ayah itself is not a syllogism in that format. Rather, the ayah is just right? It's in the form of a question, like a rhetorical question. It has a rhetorical effect. It has a certain structure that you can extract from it a certain deductive argument, which we will do tomorrow. But itself, it's not how it's presented. And the Quran is presented in that way. It is formed out of ayat. That's why we get in studying the Quran, you find that we have ayat in the natural world, because those are things that are attracting the super. It's at a level that's higher. Make sense? Okay, so that is 9:15. So I think is dinner here yet, or they're gonna make me keep going? Okay, so dinner is here, inshallah. What I'm going to say is, enjoy your food, go ahead and do that. I'm going to stick around for some time. If you guys have questions, I'm more than happy to take them. I know we didn't have any time for questions tonight, but inshallah, we will have plenty of time tomorrow. The pacing will be a little bit on the slower side, because I want to make sure that everyone's on board and understands concepts. So tomorrow, just before I let you go, what can we expect? Tomorrow, we're going to get into the definition of atheism. We're going to cover time. We're going to look at the implications of atheism. If someone has a worldview where God is listening, what does that mean in terms of the conceptions of justice, value, purpose, and so on and so forth? So that's the implications of atheism. We're going to look at that tomorrow. We're going to look at what we call the contingency argument for the existence of Allah. Okay? We're gonna look at the philosophy of science. Someone that claims that, okay, we can't scientifically prove that God exists, we're gonna completely detonate that, okay? Inshallah. All right, and I think what else we have why Allah is worthy of worship, because all of this is connected to the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the other section, the Quran's rational argument for this. So those are the sections I'm going to cover tomorrow, and Sunday we have a few others related to the problem of evil. We completely get into that and disseminate or dissect all of that. There's a few of the topics that are not going to be mine on Sunday. I'll tell you those tomorrow. Okay, so may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless all of you. Jazakumullah khair for sitting patiently listening to me go on for as long as I did. I know it's tough. If there's something I said that I did that was incorrect, please speak for that. That is for myself and not. And there's anything of value, that's all. Bless you, bless your families. Enjoy your meal. I'm here for a little while. I have some questions. Okay. Salam alaikum.